Have you ever felt like your body was a barrier to being loved, accepted, or seen? Meet a girl who was constantly reminded she was too fat, too curvy, and too imperfect. The shame, ridicule, and invisibility almost consumed her. Desperate for a solution, she sought out a shortcut to a perfect body. But what happened next was a shocking reality she never saw coming. The true cost of societal standards and perfection was higher than she ever could have paid.
Beneath the endless blue of the ocean, hidden beyond the reach of human eyes, lay the majestic mermaid kingdom of Umizu. It was a place of shimmering coral towers, glowing seaweed gardens, and streets paved with pearl dust. Schools of fish danced between the elegant homes of the merfolk, and the currents carried the soft melodies of mermaids singing as they went about their day. At the heart of this kingdom stood the grand palace of Umizu, where King Nduka and Queen Urema ruled with wisdom and strength. They had been blessed with 2 daughters, and as was tradition, it was expected that both princesses would one day marry noble princes and continue the royal bloodline. But among the 2 sisters, one was different. Her name was Princess Osebulawa, the eldest daughter of the king, and she loved food. From the moment she could eat on her own, Osebulawa had been fascinated by the flavors of the sea. While other princesses nibbled on delicate portions of golden sea grapes and jellyfish nectar, Osebulawa delighted in honeyed shrimp rolls, buttery clam pies, and rich seaweed stew. She ate with joy and without shame, savoring every bite, never leaving a plate unfinished. But her love for food came with a price. Unlike the other mermaids her age, Osebulawa was not slender and graceful. She was round and full, her tail thicker than most, her arms softer. Her cheeks always had a rosy glow, and when she swam, she moved with strength rather than elegance. And the villagers noticed. "Have you seen Princess Osebulawa? She looks nothing like a royal mermaid. If she keeps eating like this, no prince will ever choose her. Her younger sister will be married before her." The whispers followed her everywhere, in the marketplace, by the riverbanks, even at palace gatherings. She tried to ignore them, but the words weighed on her heart heavier than the food in her belly. Despite it all, Osebulawa could not stop eating. She had tried, many times, to eat less to control herself, but hunger would always win. By midday, the smell of fresh sea snail dumplings would lure her back to the dining halls, where she would eat until her heart was content. She had learned to pretend that the whispers didn't bother her. She laughed louder than anyone at feasts. She told stories to hide her sadness. She never let anyone see her cry. But at night, when she lay in her shell-carved bed, staring at the glow of the jellyfish lamps, she wondered, "Why can't I be like the others? Why couldn't she be like her younger sister, Princess Neka, who was slender and admired? Why couldn't she be like her best friends, Adanma and Ifyananya, who were both beautiful and graceful? Why did she have to be the one who was always talked about? And worst of all, why was she the only one left unmarried?" Because in Umizu, a princess who was not chosen at the moonlit marriage carnival was considered a failure. And Osebulawa had already gone once before, when she was 16, and she had not been picked. Deep beneath the sea, where the waters shimmered with silver light, the most awaited event in Umizu was fast approaching, the moonlit marriage carnival. It was a tradition that had existed for hundreds of years, a sacred gathering where princesses from all the mermaid kingdoms came together to be chosen by noble princes. The purpose of the carnival. The carnival was not just a celebration. It was a test, a chance for young mermaids to prove their grace, beauty, and worth before the eyes of royal suitors. Every year, the carnival was held in the Valley of Pearls, a grand open space where the ocean's natural glow illuminated the waters in a soft, magical light. Only princesses between the ages of 16 and 18 were allowed to participate, and by the end of the festival, almost all of them would be engaged to a prince. By the time a princess turned 19, if she had not been chosen, she was considered unworthy of marriage. Whispers of bad character, misfortune, or disgrace would follow her for the rest of her life. For this reason, every young princess trained tirelessly to be at her best. The slender princesses, the graceful ones, and the delicate beauties, they had little to fear. They were always chosen, usually on their first try. But for Princess Osebulewa, the carnival was a reminder of her greatest shame. She had gone before, when she was 16, and she had not been picked. And this year at 17 she was going again, with one more chance left. She knew that if she was not chosen this time, she would only have one more chance at 18 before she became a disgrace. And she was terrified. Days before the carnival, the kingdom of Umezu buzzed with excitement. Princesses spent hours practicing their dances, their voices, and their elegance. Every movement mattered, as princes would be watching closely. Osebulewa's best friends, Adanma and Ifeananya, were also preparing. Adanma, a princess from a neighboring kingdom, was delicate and light as a feather, her scales glowing like polished emeralds. Ifeananya, equally beautiful, moved like water itself, smooth and effortless. And Osebulewa, well, Osebulewa struggled. Her dress barely fit. The seamstresses worked tirelessly to adjust the glittering coral gown, but no matter how much they stretched the fabric, it still pressed tightly against her skin. "Maybe if you ate less, you wouldn't have this problem," one of the seamstresses muttered under her breath. Osebulewa pretended not to hear. One of the most important parts of the carnival was the moon dance, a traditional performance that showed a princess's grace, balance, and beauty. The mermaids gathered at the royal dance hall, a grand space lined with golden seaweed and mirrors of polished pearl. The instructor, a strict but graceful mermaid named Madame Ugochi, stood at the front. "A princess must be light as the waves," she said. "She must move like the sea breeze, delicate and enchanting." The younger princesses giggled, eager to begin. The music started, and the princesses twirled effortlessly, their tails moving in perfect harmony with the melody. All except Osebulewa. She struggled to keep up, her movements slower, heavier. Every turn was difficult. Every leap was exhausting. And when she tried to spin, she stumbled. Laughter filled the room. One of the slender princesses from another kingdom, a proud mermaid named Princess Oluchi, swam forward with a smirk. "Maybe if you weren't so heavy you wouldn't fall," Oluchi sneered. The other princesses giggled, covering their mouths as they whispered. Osebulewa felt her face burn with embarrassment. She wanted to say something to defend herself, but instead she lowered her head and swam away, leaving the laughter behind. That night, in the quiet of her bedchamber, she cried. She cried because she was tired of being different. She cried because no matter how hard she tried, she was never enough. She cried because deep down she knew they were right. And for the first time she began to wonder, what if I never get picked? The day of the moonlit marriage carnival had arrived. The Valley of Pearls, where the festival was held, glowed with shimmering lights, its waters filled with mermaids and mermen from all the great kingdoms of the sea. The grand arena was beautifully decorated with luminous coral pillars, golden seashells, and silver bubbles that floated lazily in the water. At the center of it all was a grand platform, where the noble princes sat in their royal garments, waiting to choose their brides. Music played. Excitement filled the waters. And one by one the princesses took the stage. The first to perform was Princess Adanma, Osebulewa's dear friend. She glided across the water like a whisper, her delicate tail moving in perfect rhythm. Her dress, made of woven pearls and soft seaweed, fit her slender figure perfectly. The moment she finished, a prince from the kingdom of Omirama rose from his seat. "I choose her," he declared, his voice ringing through the valley. Cheers erupted as Adanma gracefully swam forward, accepting the prince's hand. Next was Ifeananya. Her movements were flawless, her body twisting and turning like a gentle tide. She shone like a jewel under the sea, her emerald tail shimmering. A noble prince from the kingdom of Njamans immediately stood. "She is mine," he said with admiration. Osebulewa watched as one by one, every princess was chosen, including her younger sister Olama. Olama, though a year younger, had always been graceful and delicate. Her movements were perfect, her beauty undeniable. Osebulewa's heart pounded as she watched a prince from Ezemiri Kingdom step forward. "I will take her as my bride," he announced. Osebulowa clapped with the others, but inside, her heart was breaking. She was next. And she knew what was coming. As she swam forward, she felt the weight of every eye on her. She took a deep breath. The music began. She tried to move gracefully. She tried to dance as she had practiced. But she was slow. She was heavy. Her dress, already tight, pulled against her body, making her movements even harder. And then, she stumbled. Gasps filled the arena. A murmur spread among the crowd. Some of the princesses covered their mouths, hiding their giggles. The princes whispered amongst themselves. Not one of them stepped forward. Not one. The music stopped. The festival moved on. And Osebulowa was left standing alone on the stage. Rejected. Unwanted. She lowered her head, blinking back tears of humiliation, and slowly swam away, the sound of whispers following her. The waters felt colder as Osebulowa returned to the palace of Umezu. She barely spoke a word. She barely looked at anyone. The moment she entered the royal chambers, she collapsed in her mother's arms. "I was the only one, Mama," she sobbed. "The only one who was not picked." Queen Nwanyinma held her daughter tightly, gently stroking her long, thick hair. "My child, do not weep," she said softly. "Your time will come." "No, it won't," Osebulowa whispered. "Next year will be my last chance. If I am not picked, I will be an outcast. A failure." Her mother opened her mouth to comfort her, but Osebulowa pulled away and swam to her chamber, locking the door behind her. As she lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind raced. "I have 1 year left. I cannot go through this again. I must become slim." Then, as if a shadow had entered her heart, an idea took root. "I will find a sorcerer. No matter what it takes, I will be chosen next year." Life in Umezu Kingdom went on, but for Osebulowa, everything had changed. Her friends were gone, now living in their husbands' palaces, enjoying the life that she had dreamed of. Her younger sister Olama was married, sending home letters filled with stories of her new life as a queen. Osebulowa was alone. The whispers in the kingdom grew louder. "She is too fat to be a wife. No prince will ever want her. Next festival is her last chance. If she fails, she will be a disgrace." She pretended not to hear, but every word felt like a knife to her heart. She tried to eat less, but every time she saw food, she could not resist. She tried to dance alone, but her movements were still slow. Then, as the next festival approached, panic set in. "I have one last chance," she whispered to herself. "I must do something." That was when she heard of the sorcerer of the deep abyss. One night, under the dim glow of the deep-sea lanterns, Osebulowa wrapped herself in a cloak and swam out of the palace. She followed a narrow, dark path, her heart pounding with fear. Finally, she reached a small, eerie cave, surrounded by glowing seaweed and whispering currents. A shadow moved inside. "Who comes seeking power?" a deep, raspy voice asked. Osebulowa hesitated, then stepped forward. "It is I, Princess Osebulowa." From the darkness, a figure emerged. A mermaid with black eyes like empty voids and scales as dark as midnight. The sorcerer hissed, tilting her head. "The princess who is too fat to be chosen." Osebulowa flinched. "I want to be slim before the festival. I will do anything." The sorcerer smiled. "Anything?" Osebulowa swallowed hard. "Yes." The sorcerer moved closer, circling her like a predator. "You will pay me 1,000 cowries." Osebulowa shouted. "That is a lot of money." The sorcerer asked again, "If you can't pay me, then forget it." She hesitated but had to give the sorcerer all her golden jewelries and the money with her. Then the sorcerer smiled. "There is a way," she whispered. "Eat what I give you, and you will shed every unwanted pound." Osebulowa's eyes widened. "Truly?" The sorcerer reached into a small silver shell, pulling out something small and wriggling. "Swallow these," she said. Tiny creatures that will eat your fat from the inside. In one moon cycle, you will be as slender as the others. Osebulowa's stomach twisted. Tapeworms. Is it safe? The sorcerer smiled, her teeth sharp. Do you want to be beautiful or not? Osebulowa hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, she swallowed the tapeworms. She felt nothing at first. But in the coming weeks, everything changed. First, it seemed to work. Osebulowa began losing weight rapidly. Her dresses fit better. Her reflection in the water became slimmer. The palace servants whispered in amazement. Look at the princess. She is finally becoming beautiful. She smiled to herself, proud of her decision. But soon things took a dark turn. Her stomach always hurt. She felt weak, dizzy and tired. She could barely swim without losing her breath. And then, a week before the festival, she collapsed. The palace healers rushed to her chamber. Her body is too weak, they cried. She has lost too much weight too quickly. The truth was revealed. She has swallowed a terrible parasite, the healers gasped. It is eating her from within. The royal physicians worked tirelessly, feeding her healing herbs and forcing the parasites from her body. But the damage was done. The festival came and went. And for the third and final time, Osebulowa missed her chance. She was now 19. And in the eyes of the kingdom, she was a failure. Weak and heartbroken, Osebulowa lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Her mother sat beside her, gently stroking her hand. My daughter, Queen Nwanyinma whispered, you nearly lost your life trying to be something you are not. Tears rolled down Osebulowa's cheeks. But Mama, no prince will want me now. I have failed. The queen smiled sadly. A true husband does not choose his wife by the size of her body, but by the strength of her heart. Osebulowa listened but did not believe. Osebulowa had survived, but the past year had changed her forever. She had faced death from the tapeworms. She had faced shame at the carnival. She had faced rejection from the entire kingdom. But through it all, she had learned one thing. She wanted to live, not for a prince, not for a carnival, but for herself. So she stopped chasing thinness and instead embraced health. She ate well but in moderation. She trained her body not to be small but to be strong. She ignored the whispers of the villagers who still saw her as a failure. And slowly she changed. She was no longer the biggest, but neither was she thin. She was healthy, full of life and content with who she was. Yet, as the months passed, one fear remained. Would she ever find love? Or had she truly lost her chance forever? One evening, as Osebulowa swam along the coral reef, she heard a groan. She turned and saw a merman tangled in a hunting net, his tail bleeding from the sharp coral. His golden-brown scales shimmered in the fading light. His muscles tense as he struggled. Osebulowa hesitated. Hold still, she called. The man gasped for breath. I can't move. She grabbed the net and pulled. It was tangled tight, but she was strong now. Stronger than before. With one final heave, the net snapped. The merman collapsed, breathing heavily. Osebulowa helped him sit up. Are you hurt? He looked at her with deep, golden eyes. You saved me. She smiled. I couldn't just leave you there. For a moment, he just stared at her. Then he chuckled softly. Most would have. She frowned. Why? The merman hesitated, then sighed. Because I am not from this kingdom. I am a stranger in your waters. Osebulowa raised an eyebrow. Where are you from? He studied her for a moment, then finally said, I am Prince Dyke of Nri. Osebulowa's heart stopped. Prince. She had just rescued a prince. In the days that followed, Prince Dyke sought her out again. He was different from the princes at the carnival. He did not mock her size. He did not pity her past failures. He did not care about the whispers of others. Instead, he laughed at her jokes. He asked about her dreams. He listened to her stories as if she mattered. One evening, as they sat by a glowing reef, Osebulowa sighed. You know, no prince ever looked at me before. They all wanted the slim ones. Dyke turned to her. Then they were fools. She blinked. You don't think I'm too different? He smiled. Different? But different is beautiful. For the first time, Osebulowa believed it. One day, Prince Dyke arrived at her palace, dressed in full royal robes. The kingdom gathered in shock. Why is he here? The villagers whispered. Dyke stood before Osebulowa's parents. I wish to marry your daughter, he declared. Gasps rang out. Her? Someone muttered. But she is not slim. Dyke's voice was firm. She is kind. She is strong. And she is the woman I choose. Osebulowa wept. Not because she had finally been chosen, but because, for the first time, she had been chosen for who she truly was. And so, she became a queen, not because she had changed, but because she had accepted herself. And that was her true happily ever after.
The moral of the story is that true beauty comes from within, and self-worth is not determined by appearance. Osebulowa's journey teaches that taking dangerous shortcuts to fit society's standards can have harmful consequences. Instead, self-love, patience, and making healthy choices lead to true happiness. In the end, it was not her size but her kindness and character that brought her the love and respect she desired.
Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to stay connected by leaving your thoughts in the comments, giving the video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you're the first to know when a new content drops. We appreciate your support and look forward to seeing you in the next video.